Caroline handed me the pregnancy test at my desk on December 12th. We hadn't been intimate in 4 months. The test was cold in my hand, that hard plastic kind with the digital display. It beeped when I pressed the button by accident. Pregnant 5 to 6 weeks, it said 5 to 6 weeks. I sat there in my office at the foundation, twisting my signet ring. The ring was heavy on my finger, 14-karat gold, thick band with my family crest engraved deep into the metal. My grandfather wore it. My father wore it. Right now it felt like handcuffs. We'd been sleeping in separate bedrooms since October. I remember the date because it was after the quarterly board meeting, the one where Caroline seemed distant, distracted. I thought she was stressed about the March Gala, the foundation's 85th anniversary, 800 donors expected, $4 million in fundraising at stake. I looked at that test again. 5 to 6 weeks meant conception sometime around Thanksgiving, the Savannah trip. She'd told me it was a donor cultivation weekend, the Forsyth Inn, historic boutique hotel. I'd stayed home with Maggie. Our daughter had a debate tournament. Caroline went alone. Or so she said. I twisted the ring again. The family crest was an oak tree and a shield. And Ashford always does the right thing, my mother used to say. But what was the right thing when your wife hands you proof of another man's child and expects you to, what? Adopt it? Pretend? Move on? My phone buzzed. Caroline's text. Can you come home? We need to talk about options. Options. The drive from the foundation office to our house on Meeting Street took 12 minutes. I counted every single one. Charleston in December is beautiful. All those historic homes decorated for Christmas, tourists taking carriage rides, church bells from St. Michael's ringing the hour. Picture perfect. The kind of place where appearances matter more than truth, where 300-year-old families smile at each other in public while destroying each other in private. I'd spent my whole adult life trying to be the good Ashford, the one who restored our family's reputation after my brother's embezzlement scandal 10 years ago. William Henry Ashford III stole $2 million from our grandfather's foundation and went to prison. I'd spent a decade rebuilding donor trust, every handshake, every speech, every gala, proving I wasn't him. And now this. Caroline was waiting in my study when I got home. She'd changed out of her work clothes. She was VP of development at the foundation. We worked together every day into something casual. Yoga pants, oversized sweater, like this was just another evening. Her auburn hair was pulled back. She looked tired. William, she said. Her voice had that soft, reasonable quality she used in donor meetings. I know this is a shock. I held up the test. 5 to 6 weeks, we haven't... I couldn't even finish the sentence. I know. She sat down on the leather couch, the one her grandmother had given us as a wedding gift 15 years ago. It was Thanksgiving weekend in Savannah. The words landed like physical blows. Who? Preston. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Preston Matthews, our events director. Preston, 29 years old, charming. Came from Atlanta 14 months ago. I'd hired him myself. Maggie liked him. He'd helped her with her school journalism project on nonprofit management. How long? My voice sounded distant, clinical, like I was asking about budget numbers. It was just once, William. I swear. That weekend, I was feeling neglected. You give so much to the foundation, to everyone else. And Preston, he listened. We had dinner after the donor event, and she stopped. It just happened. Just happened, like weather, like fate, not choice. I looked down at my hands. The signet ring caught the lamplight. You want me to adopt this baby. I want us to work through this. She leaned forward. William, we have 15 years together. We have Maggie. We have the foundation. Our families. This is Charleston. Don't. I held up my hand, but she kept going. We don't air our dirty laundry in Charleston, darling. Think of the foundation. Think of the gala. 13 weeks away. 800 donors. Your mother is board chair. The Beaumonts, my family, were hosting the pre-gala dinner. This affects everyone. She pulled something from the coffee table. The gala invitation. Ivory cardstock, 8 by 10 inches, gold embossed with our family crest. Formal script announcing the 85th anniversary, March 15th, 2025. 13 weeks, William. We can get through this together. No one has to know. I stared at that invitation. The gold embossing felt raised under my fingertips when I picked it up. It smelled like expensive paper, like legacy, like everything I'd built. Where did you stay? The question came out of nowhere. What? In Savannah. You said it was the budget hotel near the convention center for foundation expense purposes. Something flickered in her eyes. The Forsyth Inn. Why does... The Forsyth is $900 a night. I stood up. The budget place is $150. Where's the receipt? William, that's not important. Where is the receipt? She pointed to her briefcase by the door. I found it in the side pocket. Thermal paper, slightly crumpled. The Forsyth Inn, $892. November 28th through 30th. Room service charges, spa services. 2 keycards inside the receipt fold, thick plastic with the hotel's peacock logo. 2 keycards. I held them up. They clicked together when they touched. You weren't alone. Caroline's perfect composure cracked. I can explain. 2 keycards, Caroline. The Forsyth gives you 2 for couples. You planned this. You charged almost $900 to the foundation's donor cultivation budget so you could spend the weekend with Preston Matthews. The room was silent except for the grandfather clock in the corner. Tick, tick, tick. Each second was a hammer. I'll pay it back, she whispered. You'll pay back the foundation. I heard my voice rising. You stole from my grandfather's charity so you could cheat on me. I didn't steal. The categorization was embezzlement. The word hung in the air, my brother's word. That's what this is called. Caroline stood up, her southern charm activating like armor. William Henry Ashford IV, you will not compare me to your criminal brother. I made a mistake. I'm pregnant. I'm asking you, begging you to be the man I married, the forgiving man, the Christian man, the man who leads marriage ministry at St. Michael's. Get out of my study. William, get out. She left, closing the door softly behind her. Southern ladies never slam doors. That would be admitting there's a problem. I sat there in the dark, twisting my ring. The test was still on my desk, the receipt, the key cards, the gala invitation. 13 weeks until I'd have to stand in front of 800 people and pretend everything was fine. Can a man who built his identity on protecting his family's reputation choose truth when truth destroys that reputation? I didn't have an answer, but I had 13 weeks to find one. The next morning, I went to the foundation office early, 6 a.m. The building was empty except for security. I needed to think. I needed space. I needed... William? Amelia Harrington, our CFO, was already at her desk. Coffee in hand, spreadsheets on her screen. You're here early. Amelia was 43, brilliant with numbers, and had been with the foundation for 8 years. She'd helped me rebuild after my brother's disaster. If anyone could keep a secret, it was Amelia. Couldn't sleep. I made coffee in the break room. My hands were shaking. She appeared in the doorway. I need to talk to you about something. I've been waiting for the right time. She paused. It's about Caroline's expense reports. My stomach dropped. What about them? Amelia pulled up a spreadsheet on the conference room screen. Columns of numbers, dates, locations, amounts, highlighted in yellow. I flagged this weeks ago, but I wanted to wait until I had all the documentation before bringing it to you. Caroline's expense reports over the past 14 months show a pattern. She clicked through the entries. Hotels charged as donor cultivation. spa days as professional development, restaurants as client meetings, but when I cross-referenced with our donor database, she clicked again. Most of these dates don't match any actual donor activity. How much? $14,800. The number hit me like a punch. $14,800, yes. Amelia's voice was gentle. William, I think you should see this one. She highlighted a line. November 28th through 30th, the Forsyth Inn, $892, charged as donor cultivation trip to Savannah, but she pulled up another screen. We had no donor events in Savannah that weekend. I checked. I sat down. The conference room chair was cold leather. What else? This. She opened another file. Boutique receipts, lingerie, high-end restaurants, spa packages, all charged as professional attire or client entertainment. William, I've been a nonprofit CFO for 20 years. She stopped. This is embezzlement, not my brother stole millions embezzlement, but still, it's theft. The foundation bylaws binder was on the shelf behind her. I'd memorized those bylaws. Article 7, Section 3, officers may be removed for conduct unbecoming the Foundation's mission, including but not limited to financial impropriety, moral turpitude, or actions that damage the Foundation's reputation. The board meeting is in 3 days, Amelia said quietly. I have to present the quarterly financials. I can't hide this. I know. I looked at the numbers on the screen. $14,800. My wife had been systematically stealing from my grandfather's foundation for over a year to fund an affair with our events director. Do what you need to do, Amelia. The foundation comes first. She nodded. William, I'm sorry. After she left, I sat in that conference room for an hour, just staring at those numbers. That's when I realized this wasn't just personal betrayal. This was a crime against an institution, against my grandfather's legacy, against every donor who trusted us. My brother went to prison for stealing from the foundation. Caroline had done the same thing. Smaller scale, different motivation, same crime. If you've ever had someone betray your trust while hiding behind respectability, someone who looked perfect on the outside while stealing from you, just type, I see you, in the comments. You're not alone in this. The weight of the signet ring felt different now. Not like handcuffs, like a gavel. That evening, someone knocked on my door at home. I wasn't expecting anyone. Maggie was upstairs doing homework. Caroline was. I didn't know where Caroline was. We hadn't spoken since last night. I opened the door. A woman stood there, early 30s, dark hair, nervous expression. Mr. Ashford, I'm Grace Matthews, Preston's sister. Preston's sister. For a moment, I just stared. I'm sorry to come to your house, she said quickly, but I couldn't. Can I come in? I led her to the study, the same room where Caroline had confessed yesterday. Grace sat on the edge of the leather couch, clutching a spiral-bound folder. Her hands were shaking. I found Preston's old phone, she said. He was trading it in at the store. We share a phone plan. The store called me by mistake to confirm the trade-in. I picked it up before they wiped it. She looked up at me. Mr. Ashford, I couldn't stay silent. Not again. Again. Preston did this before. At his last job in Atlanta, a charity organization, he had an affair with his boss's wife. She got pregnant. He left. Just vanished. Moved here to Charleston. New job. New start. And now... Her voice broke. I should have warned you when he got hired, but he's my brother. I hoped he'd changed. She handed me the folder. These are text messages between Preston and your wife. July through November. I printed them. I highlighted. She couldn't finish. I opened the folder. 28 pages. Spiral bound. Yellow highlighter everywhere. The paper was smooth, that laser printer stock. It smelled like ink and marker. The first highlighted text was dated July 15th. Caroline to Preston. Meeting went well today. Loved your ideas for the silent auction. Coffee tomorrow to discuss? Innocent. Professional. August 3rd. Preston to Caroline, your husband doesn't see you the way I do. You're wasted in a supporting role. August 21st. Caroline. William's so focused on his grandfather's legacy, he forgets I'm here. September 5th. Preston, when are you going to choose yourself over his reputation? I flipped through the pages. My hands were numb. The texts got more explicit, more frequent. Planning meetings, hotel rooms, Savannah. Then I found the one Grace had highlighted 3 times. October 15th, the date of our quarterly board meeting. Preston to Caroline. He's droning on about grandfather's sacred legacy. Meanwhile, I'm counting down minutes until Friday when we have that suite at the Vendu. Your revolution awaits, my darling. October 15th. I remembered that board meeting. I'd given a presentation about the foundation's history, our mission, my grandfather's vision. Caroline had been texting her lover during the board meeting while I talked about legacy. I flipped more pages. There were texts from Sunday mornings, during church services at St. Michael's, Caroline leading worship on the altar guild while texting Preston in the pew. There's more, Grace whispered. She pointed to a text from November 22nd, the Friday before Thanksgiving. Read this one. Caroline, William thinks I'm doing donor cultivation in Savannah. He's staying home with Maggie. We have the whole weekend. Preston, the Forsyth Presidential Suite. I already booked it on the foundation account like you asked. Caroline, you're wicked. Preston, you love it. I closed the folder. My chest felt tight. Why are you showing me this? Because you deserve to know the truth. Grace's eyes were wet. And because... She took a shaky breath. Preston left Atlanta because that woman's husband found out. The husband confronted Preston. Preston ran. Just packed up and left. The woman had a miscarriage from the stress. Preston never even called to check on her. She looked at me directly. He'll do the same thing to Caroline, to you, to that baby. He's already talking about moving to Seattle. He's a coward, Mr. Ashford. And I can't watch him destroy another family and stay silent. The door to the study opened. Maggie stood there, 15 years old, long, dark hair, my daughter. She was holding her phone. Her face was pale. Maggie? I stood up. What's wrong? I was recording. Her voice was small. For my journalism project on nonprofit ethics, I had my phone recording on the stairs to capture ambient sound for audio technique. She looked at Grace, then at me, then at the folder in my hands. I heard everything. She'd heard everything. Caroline's affair, the pregnancy, Preston, the texts. Dad? Her voice cracked. Is Mom really... I couldn't speak. I just pulled her into a hug. She was shaking. I felt her tears on my shirt. Grace stood up quietly. I'll leave this with you, she said, gesturing to the folder. I'm sorry, Mr. Ashford. I'm sorry, Maggie. After Grace left, Maggie and I sat on the couch. She was crying silently, the way she did when she was trying to be strong. I remembered when she was little, 7 years old, crying at her grandmother's funeral. Silent tears, trying not to make a fuss. Is it true? She finally whispered. All of it? Yes. What are you going to do? I looked down at my signet ring, the family crest, the oak tree, and the shield. I don't know yet. Mom wants you to just what? Pretend? She thinks it's best for everyone. Maggie pulled back and looked at me. Her eyes were fierce. Is it best for you? I didn't answer. Couldn't. Dad. She wiped her face. Everyone at school knows our family. They know you and Mom are like this perfect Charleston couple. The foundation, the church, the gala. If they find out... She stopped. But if you pretend, if you lie, what does that teach me? What does that teach anyone? My 15-year-old daughter was asking me the question I couldn't answer. Can a man who built his identity on protecting his family's reputation choose truth when truth destroys that reputation? I need to think, sweetheart. She nodded. Then she picked up the folder of texts. Can I read these? Maggie, I'm not a child, Dad. I'm going to hear about this eventually. I'd rather hear the truth from you than gossip at school. I let her take the folder. She went upstairs. I sat alone in my study, twisting my ring. Outside, Charleston was beautiful. Church bells, historic homes, Christmas lights. Inside, everything was broken. Sunday brunch at my mother's house was a tradition. Eleanor Ashford, 76 years old, board chair of the foundation, steel magnolia in cashmere and pearls. Her house on Trad Street was the kind of place Southern living photographed. Perfect, elegant, unforgiving. Caroline and I arrived separately. I hadn't told her I was coming. Hadn't told her anything since Maggie overheard 3 nights ago. We've been living in the same house like ghosts, passing each other in hallways, sleeping in separate rooms. My mother knew something was wrong the moment I walked in. She had that look, the one that meant she'd already heard whispers. Charleston was a small town dressed up as a city. Someone always knew something. William, she kissed my cheek. Caroline called yesterday. She said, you two are having difficulties. Difficulties? I almost laughed. Is that what she called it? She asked if I could talk to you about forgiveness, about family, about... My mother paused. About the March gala. Of course. The gala. Always the gala. 800 people watching. The Ashford family reputation on display. Where's Maggie? My mother asked, and she didn't want to come. My mother's eyes sharpened. Maggie never misses Sunday brunch. What's happened, William? Caroline arrived then, perfectly dressed, navy dress, pearl earrings, makeup flawless. She smiled at my mother like nothing was wrong. Eleanor. She kissed my mother's cheek. Thank you for having us. We sat in the formal dining room, eggs Benedict, fresh fruit, coffee in my grandmother's china, the same china I'd eaten from every Sunday of my childhood. My mother poured coffee with steady hands. Caroline tells me you're being unreasonable, my mother said, cutting straight to it. No Southern euphemisms from Eleanor Ashford. I set down my fork. Did she tell you why? She said there was an indiscretion, that she's pregnant, that you're refusing to work through it. My mother's voice was calm, clinical. She said you're letting pride destroy 15 years of marriage. Pride. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Did she mention embezzlement? My mother's coffee cup stopped halfway to her lips. $14,800. I pulled out the spreadsheet Amelia had given me, set it on the table between the eggs and the fruit. Stolen from the foundation over 14 months. Hotels, restaurants, spa days, all charged to donor cultivation, all lies. She used grandfather's foundation money to fund her affair. Caroline's face went white. William, that's not... I can explain. She charged the Savannah Hotel to the foundation account, the one where she got pregnant with another man's child, $892. Our events director, Preston Matthews, 29 years old. She's been having an affair for 5 months. She mocked me in text messages during board meetings, during church services. My mother set down her coffee cup. The sound echoed. Eleanor, please. Caroline's voice cracked. William is being vindictive. I made a mistake. I'm asking for grace, for forgiveness. Isn't that what we teach at St. Michael's? We don't air our dirty laundry in Charleston, darling. Think of the foundation. Think of the gala. Think of... Stop. My mother's voice cut like a blade. Caroline stopped. My mother stood up. She walked to the sideboard and opened a drawer, pulled out a burgundy velvet box, the pearl necklace, 3 strands of Mikimoto pearls, platinum clasp with diamonds. I knew this necklace. My grandmother had worn it. My mother had worn it at her wedding. It was supposed to pass to Caroline for the March gala, family tradition. My mother opened the box. The pearls gleamed. She ran her fingers over them, cool and smooth. The velvet lining whispered. I wore these at my wedding, my mother said quietly. My mother-in-law gave them to me when I proved I understood what being an Ashford means. She looked at Caroline. Do you know what it means? Eleanor, it means truth, not image. It means integrity, even when it costs you everything. She closed the box. You stole from my husband's foundation. You betrayed my son. You got pregnant with another man's child and asked William to adopt it so you could save face. I made a mistake. You made a choice. My mother's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Multiple choices. Over 5 months. You will never wear these pearls. Maggie will. Caroline stood up so fast her chair scraped. You're choosing him over your own family reputation, over the gala, over... I'm choosing truth over appearance. My mother set the box down. And Ashford always does the right thing, and the right thing is telling the truth, not protecting a liar. Caroline looked at me, then at my mother. Her perfect composure shattered. You people and your precious integrity, your grandfather's legacy, your family honor. I've spent 15 years in William's shadow, supporting his career, his foundation, his reputation. I was lonely. Preston made me feel... Special? My mother interrupted. Chosen? Caroline, he's 29. You're his boss. You approved his hiring, his salary, his contract. Did you ever think you were his career move, not his soul mate? The words hung there. Caroline's face crumpled. She grabbed her purse and left, slammed the door. So much for Southern ladies not slamming doors. My mother sat back down, poured herself more coffee. You knew, I said. I suspected. A mother knows? She looked at me over her coffee cup. What are you going to do? I don't know. The board meeting is in 2 days. I know. She reached across the table, took my hand. Her skin was papery thin, spotted with age, but her grip was strong. William Henry Ashford IV. You've spent 10 years rebuilding this family's reputation after your brother's crimes. You've been the good son, the good husband, the good Christian. But good doesn't mean doormat. If I divorce her, then you divorce her. She squeezed my hand. Your grandfather built that foundation on one principle, integrity over everything. Not convenience, not appearance, integrity. If you let her steal from it and face no consequences, you're no better than your brother. I thought of the signet ring on my finger, the weight of it. Maggie's watching you, my mother said softly. What are you teaching her about what women should tolerate? About what men of honor do when someone betrays them? That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my mother's words, about Maggie, about the gala invitations sitting on my desk. 13 weeks away, now 12. The emergency board meeting was called for Tuesday evening. 15 board members, Judge Marcus Rutherford presiding, Amelia presenting the quarterly financials. Caroline was required to attend. She was VP of Development. Preston was Events Director. Both would be there, except Preston wasn't. Has anyone heard from Mr. Matthews? Judge Rutherford asked. Heads shook around the table. His office was empty. His phone went straight to voicemail. His apartment super said he'd moved out over the weekend, no forwarding address. He'd run, just like Grace said he would. Amelia stood at the head of the table with her spreadsheets projected on the screen. I need to address some financial irregularities in the development department's expense reports. I watched Caroline's face. She sat perfectly still, hands folded. That same composure she'd had at my mother's house before it shattered. Amelia walked through it all. Every receipt, every charge, every lie. The numbers glowed on the screen in yellow highlights. $14,800. This constitutes embezzlement, Amelia said. Her voice was steady, professional. These expenses were fraudulent, charged to the foundation for personal use. Judge Rutherford pulled the foundation bylaws binder from the shelf behind him, 4 inches thick, brown leather. It creaked when he opened it. The pages made that snap sound when he turned them. Article 7, Section 3, he read aloud. His voice had that legal gravity. Retired federal judge. family friend. He'd known me since I was a boy. Officers may be removed for conduct unbecoming the Foundation's mission, including but not limited to financial impropriety, moral turpitude, or actions that damage the Foundation's reputation. Marcus, Judge Rutherford, Caroline stood up. I can explain. These were legitimate business expenses. William is angry with me for personal reasons, and he's weaponizing Mrs. Ashford. The judge's voice was ice. I've reviewed the documentation. These charges do not correlate with any donor activity. The Savannah trip, for instance. We had no events in Savannah that weekend, yet you charged $892 for hotel accommodations. I was cultivating a potential major donor. Who? Amelia's voice was quiet, deadly. Name them. Caroline's mouth opened, closed. Nothing came out. The Foundation's reputation is built on trust. Judge Rutherford continued. When an officer violates that trust through financial misconduct, we have a fiduciary duty to act, regardless of personal relationships. 3 board members stood up, left the room. I recognized them, old friends of Caroline's family. The Beaumonts had deep Charleston roots. This was going to cost me allies. My mother sat at the end of the table, board chair. She hadn't said a word. She just looked at Caroline with those steel eyes. I'll resign, Caroline said suddenly. Effective immediately. I'll pay back every penny. Just don't make this public. Think of the gala. Think of... The vote is whether to terminate for cause or accept resignation, Judge Rutherford said. Termination creates a public record. Resignation does not. However, he looked at my mother. Board chair's decision. Every eye turned to Eleanor Ashford. My mother stood slowly. She placed both hands on the table. Caroline Elizabeth Beaumont Ashford has violated this Foundation's bylaws. She has stolen from an institution my husband spent 40 years building. She has betrayed the trust of our donors. She paused. I move to terminate her employment for cause, effective immediately. Eleanor, you can't... Caroline's voice was desperate. I'm family. You were family. My mother's voice didn't waver. Motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Second. Judge Rutherford's voice. All in favor of termination? 11 hands went up. My mother's hand went up. Against her own daughter-in-law. Public record. Public shame. 4 hands stayed down. Motion carries 11-4. Judge Rutherford's voice was final. Caroline Ashford is terminated from her position as VP of Development, effective immediately. Mr. Matthews is terminated in absentia for abandonment of duties. Security will collect their access badges and office keys. The bylaws binder closed. That heavy thud echoed. Caroline stood there, frozen. Then she looked at me. You did this. You destroyed me. No. I kept my voice level. You destroyed yourself. I just didn't cover for you. She left. The door closing behind her was very quiet. After the meeting, my mother found me in the parking lot. That was the hardest thing I've ever done. I know. The Beaumonts will never forgive this. I know that too. She handed me the burgundy velvet box, the pearls. Give these to Maggie. Tell her they represent truth over appearance. Tell her that's what makes an Ashford. I took the box. The pearls were cool through the velvet. The gala is 11 weeks away, my mother said. Charleston will be watching. Valentine's Day fell on a Friday that year. The Foundation had a smaller fundraiser dinner scheduled, 150 donors at the Francis Marion Hotel. I'd committed to it months ago. Caroline and I were supposed to co-host. Obviously that wasn't happening anymore, but Maggie wanted to come. I want to see how you handle it, she'd said. Everyone at school is talking. People know something happened. I need to see you. She stopped. I need to see you choose integrity, Dad. So we went, me and my 15-year-old daughter. No wife, no explanation. Just the two of us in formal wear, smiling at donors who were too polite to ask questions out loud, but whose eyes were full of them. Maggie wore a simple black dress. I'd given her the pearl necklace that morning, 3 strands of Mikimoto pearls against her collarbone. Every person in that ballroom knew those pearls, knew what they meant, knew they'd been meant for Caroline. The whispers started immediately. Maggie's hand found mine during cocktail hour. Her palm was sweaty. Dad, everyone's staring. I know. Mrs. Patterson just asked me where Mom was. I said she wasn't feeling well. That's fine. Dad. Her voice dropped. I can't breathe. I looked down at her. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow, panic attack. I'd seen her have one before, during exam week, her freshman year. Let's go outside. I steered her toward the terrace doors. We stood in the cold February air, Charleston at night, church steeples silhouetted against the sky. Maggie was shaking. Everyone's staring at Mom's stomach and whispering, she said between gasps. My English teacher asked if I'm okay. They all know. And I'm watching you smile and pretend everything is fine. Dad. She looked up at me, tears streaming. Are you teaching me that lying is okay if it looks polite? The question hit me like a freight train. Are you teaching me that women should just tolerate betrayal and smile through it? That reputation matters more than truth? Her voice cracked. Because that's what I'm learning right now. That's what you're showing me. I pulled her into a hug. She was shaking so hard. My daughter, 15 years old, having a panic attack at a fundraiser because I was too scared to tell the truth. Maggie, I wrote an essay for school, she whispered against my shirt, about Southern politeness, about how we hide truth behind manners, how we value appearance over integrity. Mrs. Chen wants me to publish it in the school paper, but I told her no because it would embarrass you, because it's about our family. I held her tighter. Over her shoulder, I could see the ballroom through the glass doors. 150 people, donors, friends, Charleston society, all watching us, all pretending not to watch. If you were William in that moment, your 15-year-old daughter having a panic attack because you're teaching her that lying is okay if it looks polite, would you keep pretending at that dinner to protect your reputation? Type truth. If you'd tell the truth, consequences be damned. Or type wait if you'd maintain appearances until the right moment. What would you do? There's no easy answer here. Me? I knew what I had to do. The gala was 2 weeks away. We went back inside. I gave my remarks. Short, professional. Thanked the donors. Didn't mention Caroline. When people asked, I smiled and said, family matters. We're working through them. That was the last time I lied. The DNA test results arrived on a Tuesday. Dr. Thomas Pemberton called me to his office personally. He'd been our family physician for 30 years. On the foundation board, delivered Maggie. He knew everything about the Ashford family medical history. His office smelled like antiseptic and old leather. Medical diplomas on the wall, photos of his grandchildren. He slid a sealed envelope across his desk, thick paper. Confidential, Dr. Thomas Pemberton, stamped in red ink across the seal. The waxy security seal made a tearing sound when I broke it. 3 pages, medical letterhead, genetic marker charts, numbers I didn't understand. Then at the bottom, in plain English, probability of paternity, 0.0% exclusion. Dr. Pemberton's voice was gentle. William, I've known you since you were born. The test is conclusive. 0 probability. I'm sorry. I stared at those words. 0.0% exclusion. Science. Objective. Final. Caroline had tried one last time 2 weeks ago. Shown up at the house. Claimed maybe the baby was mine. Maybe the timing worked. Maybe we'd had a night I didn't remember. But science didn't lie. People lied. Science just was. The baby is due in July, Dr. Pemberton said. 28 weeks from now, Caroline will need prenatal care, support, even if... He paused. Even if you're divorcing. I'll make sure she has what she needs. I folded the papers, put them back in the envelope, for the baby's sake, not hers. That's more grace than most men would show. Dr. Pemberton stood, shook my hand. Your grandfather would be proud of you, William. I wasn't sure about that. My grandfather had been married to my grandmother for 53 years, never divorced, never even separated. What would he think of his grandson's failure? But then again, my grandfather had built a foundation on one principle, integrity over everything. Maybe he would understand. I went to see Reverend Catherine Porter the next day, St. Michael's Episcopal Church, white steeple, bells that rang every hour. I'd grown up in these pews, been confirmed here, married here, baptized Maggie here. Reverend Catherine was 52, kind eyes, sharp mind. She'd been counseling me and Caroline separately since the affair came out. Well, she'd been counseling me. Caroline had stopped going after the first session. We sat in her office, books everywhere, a window overlooking the graveyard, Charleston's historic dead. The DNA test came back, I said. I see. She poured tea, Earl Grey. The cup was warm in my hands. How are you feeling? Relieved. That's terrible, isn't it? I'm relieved my wife's baby isn't mine. It's honest. She sipped her tea. William, you've been coming here for weeks asking the same question. Should I forgive her? Should I reconcile? Should I try to save the marriage? Isn't that what Christians do? Forgive. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. She set down her cup. Forgiveness is releasing the anger, the bitterness, the desire for revenge. It's for your healing, not hers. But reconciliation requires repentance, trust, changed behavior. Caroline has shown none of those things. She says I'm being unforgiving, vindictive, unchristian. William, Reverend Catherine leaned forward. Grace without truth isn't grace. It's just enabling destruction dressed in kindness. What are you teaching Maggie about self-respect? The same question my mother had asked, the same question Maggie had asked with her panic attack. The gala is 9 weeks away, I said. 800 people. My mother is board chair. The foundation's 85th anniversary. If I tell the truth publicly, then you tell the truth publicly. She smiled gently. And Ashford always does the right thing. Is lying to 800 donors the right thing? I twisted my signet ring. That question again. You know, Reverend Catherine said, the real question isn't whether you should forgive Caroline. You can forgive her and still divorce her. The real question is, what kind of man do you want to be? And more importantly, what kind of man do you want Maggie to see? I thought about Maggie wearing those pearls. 3 strands of family history. Truth over appearance. I know what I have to do, I said. That night, Maggie knocked on my study door. She was holding papers, 3 pages, typed, red pen marks in the margins, teacher comments. Can I come in? Always. She sat on the leather couch, the same couch where Caroline had sat that first night, where Grace had brought the text messages, where everything had broken. I finished my essay, Maggie said, for school. Mrs. Chen loved it. She wants to publish it in the school paper. Maybe submit it to that regional student journalism competition. She paused. But I need your permission. She handed me the pages. I smelled coffee. Maggie's late night writing sessions. Red pen marks from her teacher. Enthusiastic comments in the margins. The title, The Cost of Southern Politeness, When Silence Enables Harm. I read it slowly, every word. Maggie had written about Charleston, about how we value appearance over truth, about how we don't air our dirty laundry becomes permission for abuse, for betrayal, for lies. And then, in the final paragraph, my father taught me that integrity isn't what you believe. It's what you do when your beliefs cost you everything. Watching him choose principle over comfort, even when it meant being alone, taught me more about ethics than any textbook. Some people think silence is strength. I think honesty is. I'm proud to be his daughter. My voice broke when I read that last line out loud. I had to stop, couldn't continue. Maggie, I didn't name anyone. She was crying too. I kept it anonymous, but people will know. Everyone already knows something happened. It'll confirm it. It'll make it real, public. I looked at my daughter, 15 years old, wearing her grandmother's pearls even now at home, learning what it meant to be an Ashford. What does this ring mean to you, Dad? She pointed to my hand. I looked down at the signet ring, the oak tree, the shield, the weight that had felt like handcuffs that first night. It means... I stopped. I thought it meant protecting the family reputation, being the good Ashford, making up for my brother's crimes. And now I think it means choosing truth even when truth is expensive. Maggie smiled through her tears. Can I publish it? Yes. I pulled her into a hug. Publish it. Submit it to the competition. Tell the truth, Maggie. Always tell the truth. She left with her essay. I sat alone in my study. The gala invitation was on my desk. March 15th, 7 weeks away. 800 donors would be watching. I picked up my phone, called my mother. I'm going to tell the truth, I said when she answered. At the gala, in my remarks, I'm going to tell the truth. Silence on the other end. Then, good. It's about time an Ashford chose integrity over image. The Beaumonts will never forgive this. Half the board will resign. We'll lose donors. The foundation might not survive. The foundation will survive. My mother's voice was strong. It was built on truth. It'll stand on truth. Your grandfather didn't build something so fragile it could only exist on lies. After we hung up, I sat there in the dark, twisting my ring. The gala was 7 weeks away. Can a man who built his identity on protecting his family's reputation choose truth when truth destroys that reputation? I finally had my answer. Yes, he can, because reputation built on lies isn't worth protecting. And my daughter was watching, learning, becoming. I wanted her to become someone who told the truth, even when it cost her everything, especially when it cost her everything. March 15th arrived cold and clear, the kind of Charleston evening where the air smells like jasmine and history. The Charleston Place Hotel ballroom held 800 people, every seat filled, donors in tuxedos and gowns, the foundation's 85th anniversary gala. I stood backstage with Maggie. She was wearing the pearls. Her dress was simple, elegant. She looked so much older than 15, confident, strong. You ready, Dad? I twisted my signet ring. No. She smiled. Good. If you were ready, it would mean this didn't matter. Judge Rutherford found us. 5 minutes, William. The silent auction closed at 700,000. Record-breaking. Whatever happens tonight, the foundation is strong. Whatever happens tonight, everyone knew something was coming. Maggie's essay had been published 2 weeks ago in the school paper. Then the Charleston Post and Courier picked it up as a youth perspective piece. Anonymous, but not really. Everyone knew. Caroline wasn't here. She'd moved back to her parents' house. The Beaumont family had issued a statement. Private family matters. Translation, they were furious. 3 Beaumont cousins had resigned from the board, but 9 new members had joined. Younger, less concerned with appearance, more concerned with mission. The foundation was changing. Charleston was watching. My mother appeared in the wings, board chair. She squeezed my shoulder. Your grandfather would be proud. Tell the truth, William. The foundation was built on it. It'll stand on it. The lights dimmed. Music played. I walked onto the stage. 800 faces looked up at me. I could see individual people. Mrs. Patterson, who'd asked Maggie where Caroline was at Valentine's. Dr. Chen, Maggie's teacher, sitting with faculty from Ashley Hall. Judge Rutherford in the front row, my mother beside him, and Maggie front and center, wearing 3 strands of Mikimoto pearls that caught the stage lights. Empty chair beside her, where Caroline should have been. I gripped the podium. The gala invitation sat there, ivory cardstock, gold embossing, symbol of everything I'd been protecting. I picked it up, held it. 85 years ago, I began, my grandfather founded this organization on one principle: not fundraising, not networking, not even charity, though we do that too. I paused. Integrity. He believed that institutions, like people, are only as strong as their commitment to truth. The room was silent. 800 people barely breathing. This year has tested that principle. Tested me. You've all heard rumors, whispers. My daughter published an essay about Southern politeness and the cost of silence, about how we don't air our dirty laundry becomes permission for harm. I looked directly at Maggie. She nodded. She was right. I set down the invitation, gripped the podium with both hands. The foundation is strong tonight. Record-breaking auction, incredible donor support. But that strength didn't come from hiding truth. It came from facing it. I took a breath. Some officers have been removed for conduct unbecoming our mission, financial impropriety, violations of trust, not because of personal vindictiveness, but because this foundation, my grandfather's foundation, stands for something bigger than any individual, bigger than family reputation, bigger than appearance. Someone in the back stood up, then another. Then Judge Rutherford was on his feet. My mother, Maggie, with tears streaming down her face. Then the entire ballroom was standing, 800 people, applauding, some crying. I'd expected silence, judgment. The old Charleston families turning their backs. Instead, this. Dr. Chen was standing, Mrs. Patterson, the entire Ashley Hall faculty table, donors I'd been afraid to face, they were all standing. I looked at Maggie. She was sobbing, smiling, proud. The foundation my grandfather built stands for integrity, not image, I said when the applause finally quieted. People sat back down. When we choose reputation over truth, we betray the legacy we claim to protect. Thank you for standing with us. Thank you for believing that truth is worth the cost. More applause. I walked off stage. Maggie met me in the wings, threw her arms around me. You did it, she whispered. You chose truth in front of everyone. Judge Rutherford found us 5 minutes later. 3 major donors just increased their gifts. The Hendersons doubled their annual commitment. The foundation just raised $4.2 million tonight. New record. My mother appeared, mascara slightly smudged from tears. Your grandfather built something strong enough to survive truth. Most legacies can't say that. That night, driving home with Maggie, I looked at my signet ring, the oak tree and shield catching streetlight. And Ashford always does the right thing, I said quietly. Tonight, I finally understood what that means. Maggie reached over, squeezed my hand. I always knew, Dad. I was just waiting for you to figure it out. July 28th was humid, Charleston summer in full force. The baby was born at 7:43 a.m., 6 pounds, 8 ounces, healthy, perfect. Grace Matthews was waiting at the hospital when I arrived. Her husband, David, stood beside her. They'd been trying to have children for 5 years, multiple miscarriages, fertility treatments that didn't work, and then this. Caroline had called Grace 3 weeks ago, desperate. Preston had never contacted her, not once since he'd fled to Seattle. Caroline's parents were barely speaking to her. The Beaumonts were furious about the public scandal. Caroline was alone, pregnant, scared. I know this is strange, Caroline had said to Grace on that phone call. Grace told me about it later. Asking you, Preston's sister, but the baby deserves a family. A real family. I'm not... Caroline's voice had broken. Please, I'm begging you. Now Grace held that baby in the hospital room. Small, fragile, perfect. Grace's face was wet with tears. My brother is a coward who runs from consequences, Grace said, looking down at the infant. He did this at his last job, too. He'll probably do it again somewhere else, but this baby... Her voice caught. This baby deserves love. William, thank you for choosing life even when it wasn't your DNA. Thank you for not punishing an innocent child for adult failures. Caroline sat in the hospital bed, pale, exhausted. She looked at me. Thank you for not... She stopped. Thank you. I nodded. We'd signed the divorce papers in May, custody agreement. Maggie chose to live with me. Caroline had visitation. The house was mine. The foundation was off limits to her forever. She'd paid back the $14,800, taken a job in Atlanta, starting over. We weren't friends, probably never would be, but we could be civil. For Maggie's sake, for this baby's sake. Maggie stood beside me, looking at the infant in Grace's arms. Can I hold her? Grace smiled. Of course. Maggie took the baby carefully, sat in the hospital chair. The infant was so small in her arms. Maggie's pearls, her grandmother's pearls, hung down. The baby's tiny hand reached up, grabbed at them. Careful, little one, Maggie whispered. These belong to a woman who taught me that truth is more valuable than reputation. You're going to learn that too, from Grace, from David, from... She looked up at me. From your honorary Aunt Maggie. Grace started crying again. We're naming her Hope, Hope Grace Matthews. Hope. After everything, the betrayal, the lies, the scandal, the divorce. Hope. Caroline signed the adoption papers that afternoon. Grace and David took Hope home 2 days later. Open adoption. Maggie could visit, be part of her life. Honorary aunt to her mother's affair baby. Charleston had scandals, and then Charleston had redemptions. This was both. Driving home from the hospital, Maggie said, that was the hardest thing I've ever watched. What? Mom signing those papers, giving up her baby. She made terrible choices, but... Maggie paused. She chose Hope's happiness over her own. That took courage. My daughter, 15 years old, seeing complexity in the mess, grace in the betrayal. You're wise beyond your years, I said. I learned from watching you, she said quietly. You could have been cruel, vindictive. You had every right, but you weren't. You were just honest. There's a difference. I thought about that. Honest versus cruel. Truth versus revenge. And Ashford always does the right thing, I said. Maggie smiled. Now we all know what that means. November. 1 year later, the foundation's holiday fundraiser was smaller than the March Gala, 400 people instead of 800, but warmer, more intimate, friends instead of just donors. I stood at the entrance, greeting people, Maggie beside me. She was 16 now, taller, more confident. Her essay had won the regional journalism competition. She'd been accepted early decision to Princeton, my mother's alma mater. She was wearing the pearls, always the pearls. Amelia approached us. She'd been promoted to CFO and COO after Caroline left. The foundation was thriving under her leadership. Donations up 23%. 3 new programs launched. National recognition for transparency and ethics. Record attendance tonight, Amelia said, and Judge Rutherford wants to make an announcement during dinner. The judge found me an hour later, raised his glass. Friends, I have the honor of announcing that the Ashford Foundation has been awarded the National Nonprofit Ethics Award, first organization in South Carolina to receive it, for demonstrated commitment to integrity, transparency, and institutional accountability. Applause filled the room. My mother was crying. Again, she'd been doing that a lot this year. Happy tears, she said, proud tears. This award recognizes that truth isn't weakness, the judge continued, that facing crisis with honesty makes institutions stronger, not weaker. William Ashford could have hidden scandal, could have protected reputation over principle. He chose differently. And look, he gestured around the room, the foundation didn't just survive, it thrived. More applause. I looked at my mother. She raised her glass to me. Silent pride. After dinner, Grace and David arrived with Hope, 11 months old now, walking, almost talking, beautiful. Maggie scooped her up immediately. "There's my favorite girl." Hope grabbed at Maggie's pearls, like she always did. Maggie laughed. "These are dangerous, little one, sharp and meaningful, just like the woman who wore them first." Grace smiled at me. "Preston called last week, first time since he left. He wanted to know if..." She stopped. "If we'd send photos of Hope." "What did you say?" "I said no. He ran from consequences. He doesn't get the benefits of courage." She looked at Hope in Maggie's arms. "She'll know her story someday. She'll know her birth mother made hard choices for her, that her adoptive parents chose her deliberately, that her honorary Aunt Maggie loved her from day one." Grace paused. "And that you could have made everything harder out of anger, but you didn't." I looked across the room. Caroline was there, in the back, keeping distance. We'd invited her. Maggie had insisted. "She's still my mom," Maggie had said, "and Hope's birth mother. She should see that Hope is loved." Caroline caught my eye, nodded slightly. I nodded back. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just acknowledgement. We'd both survived, changed, grown. The evening wound down. People left. Maggie and I stayed to help clean up. Hope had fallen asleep in Maggie's arms. "You should put her in the stroller," Grace said gently. "Your arms must be tired." "Never," Maggie whispered. "I'm practicing for when I'm an aunt for real someday." My mother found me near midnight. Most people had left, just family now. Judge Rutherford, Grace and David, Maggie holding Hope, Amelia finishing paperwork. "Do you remember what you asked me?" My mother said. "Last March, before the gala, you asked what would happen to the foundation if you told the truth." I remember. "Look around, William. This is what happened. Truth didn't destroy us. It freed us." She squeezed my hand. "Your grandfather would say you finally earned that ring." I looked down at my signet ring, the oak tree and shield. 3 generations of Ashford men had worn it. My grandfather, my father, me. "I was the first to redefine what it meant," I said quietly. "No." My mother smiled. "You were the first to understand what it always meant. Integrity, not image. Your grandfather knew that. Your father forgot it. You remembered." Later, sitting in my study at home, I pulled out Maggie's essay, the one that had started everything, published, award-winning, picked up by the Charleston Post and Courier, now taught in ethics classes at local schools. The final paragraph still made me tear up. "My father taught me that integrity isn't what you believe. It's what you do when your beliefs cost you everything." Watching him choose principle over comfort, even when it meant being alone, taught me more about ethics than any textbook. Some people think silence is strength. I think honesty is. I'm proud to be his daughter. I thought about that night a year ago, December 12th, Caroline handing me the pregnancy test, the signet ring feeling like handcuffs. The question I couldn't answer: can a man who built his identity on protecting his family's reputation choose truth when truth destroys that reputation? Yes. The answer was yes, because reputation built on lies wasn't worth protecting, and truth, messy, expensive, devastating truth, was worth everything. Maggie appeared in the doorway, still wearing the pearls. "You okay, Dad?" "Yeah." I twisted my ring, just thinking. She sat beside me, rested her head on my shoulder. "Grace sent photos, Hope grabbing my pearls. She's going to be trouble." "Like her honorary aunt." Maggie laughed, then quieter. "Do you regret it? Choosing truth, losing half the board? The Beaumonts hate us, moms in Atlanta, the divorce, all of it." I looked at my daughter, 16 years old, Princeton-bound, award-winning journalist, strong, honest, unafraid. "Not for a second," I said. "You're watching, Maggie, learning, becoming. I wanted you to become someone who told the truth, even when it cost everything." "Especially when it costs everything," she corrected. "Especially then." She kissed my cheek. And Ashford always does the right thing. Now I know what that means. After she went to bed, I stood at my study window. Charleston at night, church steeples, historic homes, the city that valued appearance over truth. The city that was learning, slowly, that truth was stronger. My signet ring caught the lamplight, oak tree, shield, 3 generations of meaning. I'd worn it as a burden, then as a prison. Now it was just a ring, a reminder, not of what others expected, but of who I'd chosen to be. William and Maggie redefined what family means. Not who you're born to, but who shows up when everything falls apart. If you've built your own chosen family, the people who chose truth with you, even when it cost them something, tell me about them in the comments. I want to hear your stories. And if this story moved you, if William and Maggie's journey meant something, subscribe. I tell stories about choosing integrity when reputation is on the line, about the cost of honesty and why it's worth paying. I'll see you in the next one.